Alright, I'm back at it one more time with my review of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And I'm about to probably make some people mad because I don't think that this was a very good film. I'm not saying it can't be redeemed and it doesn't have good qualities about it. I'm just saying that the fundamentals fell flat for me, and it mainly came from the writing, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit. Mainly, why did the mother have to do what she did at the beginning? I'm pretty sure Galen and them went over plans to whatever, pretty much just plans to keep this from happening. And guess what? She's like, you know what? My husband's in danger, and I'm gonna go and try to help him, which didn't need to, because if he goes off and he goes and fights or goes and creates the Death Star, the story still happens the same way, but this time she gets to live and make sure her daughter is safe, rather than going off all half-cocked and trying to save her husband. It wasn't needed. I understand that as far as moving the plot along, I can get it as a movie, but it's not something that you really needed to happen. Saw Gerrera was kind of a throwaway character, and it wasn't because Forrest Whitaker was playing him. No, one of the main problems is he has some great value type Darth Vader outfit going, and I'm like, when did this happen? Because I've seen him in the Clone Wars TV show and various times before this movie, as far as chronologically, and he wasn't wearing stuff like that. So why? We haven't seen why. At least I haven't. So I want to know, why was he having robotic legs? Why did he have to have a breathing apparatus? Like I said, a great value type of Darth Vader outfit. Then he dies for no reason, really. He's like, I'm tired of running. And I'm like, dude, just walk a little faster, get to the ship, and still fight. You have time to get out of there. I hate that type of stuff where you just die because, oh, the movie needs me to die. The movie didn't need him to die. He could have been a bigger player, but they just decided to kill him. To me, the only good characters in this movie was K2, Baze, Body Rook, and Kiro, the blind dude. Because even though the Kiro and Baze they weren't the main characters, and neither of these characters are the main character, but they still had to me, a better understanding of the characters from the actor's perspective, or at least from the writers. They actually gave time to these characters, it felt like, and they gave them a little bit more of a backstory than what we saw with the other characters. And I'm not saying that there isn't a backstory, it's just those were a little bit more flushed out kind of characters. K2 being the comic relief, being that type of character to be the reflection to Cassian, I guess is what it would be. And that point is, he was just trying to check Cassian and make sure he knew what he was doing, kind of like what 3PO was doing in episode 4 when he kept giving out all the odds and stuff like that. Body Rook was just somebody that was a fun character to see, somebody that was a part of the Imperial Alliance, or Imperial, and then he was working with Galen Erso, and then Galen is like, I'm pretty sure Galen came up to him and says, you don't really want to be here, do you? I got these plans. Go and deliver them to Saw Gerrera. And then again, the opening with him, whenever he first gets discovered, it was, oh, he's trying to help, but nobody's trusting him because he's an Imperial, which I understand you don't want to fully take in, but at least, like, what is he going to do? Like, is that little thing going to be a homing beacon, is what I'm guessing that they thought it was going to be? But it's just like, if he's saying, this dude sent me, and he wanted me, and I literally gave it up, and all these people are just trying to blow it off like it's not. Again, it was a writing flaw for me. And speaking of flaws, whenever you write a protagonist and an antagonist in any type of story, whether it's prose or like short stories, novels and stuff like that, whether it's scripts or comics or whatever you go for, your protagonist needs to have a flaw that they overcome throughout the film. And the reflection of that flaw is shown from the antagonistic side. So I didn't get Jyn Erso's flaw. Was she just impulsive? That's probably the best thing, but even then she still doesn't overcome it, which is what you want them to have. She had an arc, I guess, in a way, but she didn't have a flaw that I hooked onto, and that's why I wasn't rooting for her at the end. And same with Cassian. Them two going on for back and forth just seemed like really intense the entire movie, and it didn't need to be that way. You could have just had them intense at the beginning because they don't trust each other, because they don't know each other, and then they loosen up whenever they land on the base with Edu, I think is what it was called. And then at that point they're kind of like, okay, I'm gonna, because they kind of hinted at it, but then it's like they're not fully trusting each other at the same time. And it's just like, if they would have just trusted each other, things could have gone so much more smoothly through that scene. And speaking of that scene, we didn't need, or Jin kind of had a, in my thought processes, was a moronic type of turn after that scene, because she goes there to try to save her father. Cassian was there to kill her father, and Cassian had every chance to take the shot, but he doesn't. But Jin is on that the platform trying to save her father, and then an X-Wing comes in and blows up the platform, killing her father, and yet she's all gung-ho to try to fight for the rebellion now. Why? The rebellion just murked her father. Is literally what just happened. So why is she trying to fight with somebody that just killed her father, that doesn't trust her father, that doesn't trust her at all, and yet she's just blindly going in there because the Empire's bad? Again, it makes no sense, and that's the fundamental flaw that I had with this movie, was that most of it didn't make sense. Like, Body went after being subjugated to the Bulgalit, or however you pronounce that. He loses his mind because of that type of process. But then once Cassian tells him, you're the pilot, you know Galen Erso, he immediately remembers. Like, no, there should have been more of a process. There should have been vetted out a little bit more, to where it's like he's trying to piece it together himself, and he's coming up with the answers because his mind is coming up with the answers and remembering the things that were kind of just taken from him to confirm who he really is, which to me would have been a stronger anchor to his character if he came up with it, rather than just, oh, Cassian told me that I knew Galen Erso and I was an Imperial pilot and I defected. Now I remember everything. Again, it doesn't make sense. The first Vader scene when he's choking out Director Krennic and that from that point on, I felt it. This isn't my opinion. I saw this on another video, but he kind of didn't need to be in this movie at that point. Literally, if you would have just had him, because we all know that he was around at this time. We knew this movie took place in between episodes 3 and ended at episode 4. The only thing that we needed from this movie was to see how they got the Death Star plans and how Leia got them, and then jet off. That's all we needed from this movie. So they had endless amounts of things to do with this movie, and they fell flat on it. And to me, and I agree with this, I can't remember who it was, or I definitely plugged their scene, or their the YouTube channel, but they said that if you would have just waited to use Vader until his hallway scene where he's becoming Hallmonitor of the Year, in my opinion, and probably of the galaxy at that point, then his impact on that movie would have just been so much better, and you get to see the full force of this badass character that obviously we don't get to see in the original trilogy due to the effects and everything like that they had back then in the 70s. It just wasn't up there. But you see that full force and the full power of this Dark Lord, and you didn't need to see him having "don't choke on your aspirations," director. Like, you don't, like, I love that line, but you don't need it. You could have just gotten away with having this movie go down in the 45 minutes of Battle of Scarif, and this would have been a 10 times better movie. Again, somebody else has said this, not me, but I agree with it. We didn't need everything that happened before it, because it was kind of just wasted. Like, you weren't rooting for these characters, and I feel that falls on the writers. The writers, somebody like me that goes into writers, you have to flush out your characters. You are the ones that are writing these characters. Obviously, we have Moff Tarkin, you have the Emperor, you have Palpatine, all that stuff that is set in stone. You have Leia. Those are the only characters really set in stone, besides of like Organa, who makes an appearance, who had a weird thing saying, "Oh, I trust this Jedi with my life," and says she and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that was Ahsoka, but wasn't really said through the movie. It was kind of just something that was just left up to the interpretation. But it's just like, you had so much potential for this movie. And I was one of those people that actually kind of liked it at the beginning. But then I keep rewatching it and I see the fundamental flaws with it, whereas these people are just so intense and then they're trusting. Then they're intense again and then they're trusting. And then it's just like back and forth, and you don't need that for that arc. That was the only thing that I didn't really agree with, and that's why I was so happy when everybody died at the end, because I wasn't rooting for them, but I had a heartbreaking moment when K2 gets killed. Because I was attached to this character. This character had more personality and a better arc. Not even an arc, because he doesn't really arc, but you know what I'm meaning. He was just a better character, and same with Kiro and Baze and Body Rook and all these characters. I had more emotions attached to them rather than people like Jin and Cassian. Yes, Cassian is getting his own show, but why? Why is he getting his own show? Because you see him in the beginning and he's trying to talk to this dude, and this dude is obviously probably Imperial, giving him information or whatever, because he was going back to Edu. Oh no, not Edu, I think it was Jeddah. And the dude, then they're talking, this dude was constantly trying to get away because the transport was leaving and he was going to leave without him, and he didn't want to miss his transport and stuff like that. And then you get Cassian was forcing him just to tell me. And then at the end of it, he kills the dude at, I'm guessing, mercy. But it's like, I wasn't attached to him as a character. I didn't see his flaw, his fatal flaw that every character needs to have for you to latch on to. And it's not just he was blind like Kiro. No, fatal flaws are like impulsive, emotional, overconfident, stuff like that you could overcome because you, through the story, you learn how to overcome it by the circumstances, and you don't get that from these protagonists and antagonists, because you don't even get the payoff with Jyn Erso killing Director Krennic, because it would have been better payoff at that point instead of Cassian, because she witnessed Director Krennic call the order to kill her mother. He was on that platform whenever Galen got murked. She should have been the one to kill him, and that would have made that moment a lot better, in my opinion. And again, that is why there's just so many flaws with this movie, and I just can't overlook them. That's why I would rate this out of 4 out of a 10, because to me, this is probably the weakest movie in the entire Star Wars saga. Out of the 11 movies, to me, this is towards the bottom, mainly because of these flaws that I've pointed out. But again, that's just me. If you disagree with me, please let me know. Later today, I will be releasing my reasons why I believe Solo is a better film than Rogue One by comparing the two. And then tomorrow, I will start on the original trilogy. I'll see you in a few hours.